Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Herb's Comic Book Journey. And today we get into we're staying into the Marvel comic group. Make sure I said that better this time. The Marvel comic group, and we're discussing Demon in a Bottle. It's the story of Tony Stark, Iron Man, issues number 120 through 128. If anything I learned from this actual comic issues, capitalism, capitalism, capitalism. So let's start from the beginning, shall we? Iron Man, Tony Stark, because in this one that I learned also from this one, forget every single thing you know about the MCU version of Iron Man. The snarky little remarks, yes, he still is the playboy billionaire philanthropist, or in this one he's a millionaire because this was taking place back in the 1960s or 60s or 1960s. So this is actually one of the earlier date ones from back in the day. Now I saw that it was actually when I was reading up on it, it said it was published in 79, but when I was reading it, it said it was in 68. So I don't know the exact date when this actually came out. I'm just going to say the 60s and the 70s. So, but still a really good story. But it's more so, it's not really funny or anything like that. It's more so just talking about the business side of the superheroes. And that's pretty much what Iron Man was back in the day. So, he's not that same Tony Stark that we know Robert Downey Jr. as. He is strictly business. If he does have any funny remarks, it's based on just, hey, it needs to have some form of playfulness. But it's always just business as usual. And so, getting into the story, we start as what, like it says, Demon in a Bottle. So it's a lot of drinking on Tony Stark. Tony is on a airplane getting ready to go back home, only to find out that while he's drinking, a tank is being thrown at his aircraft. So, and also, nobody knows who Iron Man is. They only know Iron Man as Tony Stark's bodyguard. It's not, he didn't come out and say, I am Iron Man. So nobody knows. And when I mean nobody, Rhodey doesn't know. Pepper Potts isn't in this one. So the love interest in this one is Bethany Cabe. So Bethany doesn't know. Jarvis doesn't know. All of his people don't know that this is an Iron Man is Tony Stark. They just know him as the bodyguard of Tony Stark. And they don't know the man behind the mask. Which kind of like raises the question, like, come on, like, if he's the bodyguard of Tony Stark, why the hell isn't Tony Stark around whenever Iron Man is there? I mean, come on, people. It's just like the Superman. Oh, Clark Kent, Superman. Clark Kent, Superman. Clark Kent, Superman. Anywho, getting back onto the story, he gets into the airplane, switches it into Iron Man with nobody finding out because he pushes an old lady out the bathroom to go and change, and he saves the jet, gets it before it crash lands into the water. And as this is going on, he there's a a group of Navy guys coming around trying to save everybody. But he's kind of like, okay, this seems pretty weird, seeing that they're just coming this fast. So he goes and looks around the area, finds out that Namor, or the submarine, as they call him, also, he finds out that there's this guy that lives on this island who helped him out, and it's this group that pretty much has been saying that Namor's trying to destroy everything. And he's like, hey, let me talk to Namor. Namor's like, nah, fuck you. If you're with these people, then you're against me. Long story short, they duke it out, but they find out, hey, Namor tries to gets in a fight with him, and as Iron Man escapes, his armor starts messing up. As he's in the water, as he escapes, the plexiglass holes that's in his mask actually malfunction and open up, and he starts to almost drown. Namor takes him back to the island, tells him all the information, what's going on. They go on and to find out that it's the Ruxin Oil Corporation that found vibranium on that island. And so with Iron Man and Namor taking them out, it goes into, they say, hey, we're going to destroy the whole entire island, because if we can't have any vibranium, nobody can. So, moving on, they go to, he's on his way back home, but he's kind of tired. But the one thing that actually gets him through the whole entire way getting back home is thinking about what happened with the origin story about Iron Man. He thought about when he was, now in the movie Iron Man 1, he was in the Middle East. This one takes place in Vietnam, because it's back in the 60s. And he made his armor then because he had an explosion also that got into his chest, and fragments got to his heart and stuff like that. And that's how he became Iron Man. He started building himself the suit to go and get energy, and basically the same thing. Getting into beating the warlord that was there, and then became Iron Man. But nobody still knows who Iron Man is. Still a secret identity. And as he gets back, he's still drinking. He meets up with Bethany Cabe, who turns out to become later on his love interest. He says, hey, let's go out to dinner in Atlantic City. And they go to start drinking, and he begins let's go to the casino. We can go ahead and chill out. And then you have Blizzard, Meltzer, and Whiplash show up. And these guys are the bad guys who are trying to rob the place. And eventually you see Iron Man just show up. And Cave is like, well, you're supposed to be Stark's what's the name of it? Bodyguard. So why the hell are you not protecting him? I felt like everybody else needed protection as well in this situation. Not putting two and two together again. Where the hell is Iron Man? Here's Iron Man. Where the hell is Stark? Stark, where the hell is Iron Man? I mean, just put two and two together, people. And Iron Man takes them out. But in the midst of them fighting, Whiplash tries to lay the final blow. But Meltzer and Blizzard tell him, hey, don't do that. Hammer says we got to go ahead and keep him alive. But we're trying to figure out who the hell is Hammer. In the midst of all this, they Stark beats them all up. They get sent to jail, and he goes back to his company, Stark International. A public ceremony has been set up he Stark sends in Iron Man as his representative of Stark Internationals, which is actually Stark Industry in the MCU, but it's Stark International in this one. So because throughout this whole entire time that's been going on, prior to this engagement, Iron Man's suit has been really messing up lately. It's like it's even crash land at some point. Some of his reactor blasts have been messing up, and just long story short, he's doing the research, making sure that everything's put together, but it's still messing up. Man, so it keeps going on. Long story short, they have the ceremony, and it's a foreign ambassador who is Iron Man flunky, or Stan, if you will. And he goes on to say, hey, I'm a huge fan of yours. I always wanted to meet you. And they try to take a picture in front of this whole entire crowd. And it's a repulsor blast that kills the foreign ambassador. And Stark is like, oh my God, what just happened? And everybody else is like, oh my God, what just happened? Oh, he's dead. Cabe is sitting there looking at him like, you killed him. And Stark is sitting there, Iron Man is sitting there like, oh my God, I genuinely don't know what happened. My armor has been messing up now. The police is starting to get ready to arrest him. And this is where I had my black moment. The police says, he said to him that he's never really been a bad guy at any point in time. He's always been truthful with us. We're not going to arrest him, but you need to turn over your suit. They had to know that he was a white guy, because if a black guy was doing that shit, he would be arrested right there on the spot, because they let his ass go. It's a what the fuck moment for me, but moving forward, he goes. Tony Stark turns over the suit to the authorities. They said they're gonna find out who exactly is the person that's behind this. Tony turns himself in, tells the Avengers, hey, Iron Man is stepping down until further notice, as leader of the Avengers. Rhodes and him, before that, Stark meets up with Scott Lang to try to see if he can get info as Ant-Man to go ahead and talk to Whiplash at Rikers Island. What's his name? Ant-Man pretty much says that he forces him to give up some information. He gives up the information about Hammer. We still don't know who Hammer is. So he said that he's in Monaco. So Rhodey and Tony Stark fly out to Monaco, and they find out some information about where exactly is Hammer. Hammer goes on and pretty much finds them. And so Hammer he gets his goons to go after him, to go ahead and beat up every Rhodey and Stark try to find their way to hold their own, as all his goons is pretty much just beating the living shit out of him. Rhodey gets arrested because they pretty much just ran through a whole entire beach, and they picked up Tony and ran off as they both got knocked out. Rhodey, like I said, gets arrested. Stark goes in, meets up with Justin Hammer, who is the person that's been behind the malfunctioning of his suits, and he wants to take down Stark International. As he figured out more information about Hammer, like what exactly happened, even as far as like with his computer guy or geek or whoever you want to call him. Not his henchman, is his right hand guy to go ahead and set up all of this. He finds out how exactly he got all the malfunctioning going on. Tries to lock Tony up. Tony finds a way to get out of it and also get one of his suits back. And Iron Man appears, and all the henchmen or the super villains that Hammer had hired and helped get out of jail and helped try to beat up Stark. That Stark has always had in prior issues prior to this one. He goes after them. They get into this big fight. Iron Man's beating the living shit out of all of them, and he finds the guy that Hammer's right hand guy. His right hand guy says, "I ain't no snitch," only to get his life threatened by Iron Man. Iron Man gets exonerated by the police, and everything we would think is hunky dory. Tony starts drinking some more. But he also, people, as he got exonerated, people are also looking at it as, dude, you still killed a guy. And that's still always going to be like this little girl dropped her doll baby or whatever. And she was like, mommy, that's Iron Man. He still killed the guy. And so Stark is still kind of fucked up behind it. He starts drinking some more. He pretty much goes on a binge. And Bethany Cave gets in touch with him while he's at the bar, saying like, hey, meet me up at 914 Lennox or whatever the place is. As Tony is shit-faced, he gets the numbers messed up, 419. And he's like, the very next day, he goes to 419 when she's sitting there waiting at 914, saying, hey, you were supposed to meet me up here. What the hell happened? He must be still having issues. He's sitting there like, what the fuck? She's holding me up. I've been sitting here for over an hour. Keeps on going on, and he was like, man, fuck her. I'm going to start drinking some more, to the point where even Jarvis is like, hey, my man, I thought you were supposed to be going out. And he's like, Mr. Stark, you've been drinking way too much. Who the fuck are you to tell me? You're a butler. You are my employee. He basically shits on him the whole entire time. The very next day, Jarvis resigns. Cave comes back to him and says like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? And she basically tells him about her ex-husband, Alex, who was a foreign ambassador as well. And he was just using her as like his presentation wife, trophy wife, if you will. Saying like, hey, you need to really calm down with the drinking, because my ex-husband at the time was a heavy drinker. I was young. I didn't know how to help him out and everything. Not only was he a heavy drinker, he was heavy on pills and drugs and everything, to the point where he was working so hard that he didn't even acknowledge me at times. I need you to go ahead and get your life together. He's basically saying like, okay, I have but we also find out that Alex was taking so much drugs and alcohol that he basically killed himself, falling off a bridge while driving. They wasn't even sure if he had a heart attack in the midst behind the wheel, or the drugs are so shitty in his system that it slowed down his vision and impaired him by driving, and he rode off a bridge and killed himself. Stark admits he has a problem, and in the midst of all this, he's trying to get himself together. He's going through withdrawals. Cabe has been staying there with him the whole entire time to make sure that he's getting himself together. And this is when we get into the fact of his really alcoholic problem, which is demon in the bottle. This is where we find him at his most vulnerable state. He's trying to right all of his wrongs because he's wronged all the people that he's loved. There was a point in which Rhodey got shot in the arm prior to all the what's the guy's name? Dang it, I'm drawing a blank. Hammer situation. He never gets back in touch with Rhodey because he's drinking so much. He gets into a point where he's always talking about he just shits on everybody that he loves, and it's the alcohol. He's starting to blame himself. He's like, well, he starts to blame Iron Man. He's like, you're the reason why. But then he starts to think about like, well, really, it's me. It's Tony. And then he tries to get himself together. After he has the problems and he's going through the withdrawals, Stark calls back, finds Jarvis at the Avengers mansion to go ahead and try to work things out with him. But Jarvis says, hey, I got to go back home. My mother is sick. She's dying. And in the midst of all of this, prior to all of this, let's go all the way back. Shield has been trying their best to buy up Stark International. We find out that Nick Fury, I'm sorry. Nick Fury has been trying to buy up all of his information, all of Stark International, and they've been trying, like I said, capitalism. They're trying to buy up and buy up and buy up all this Stark International. And going back to this, Stark goes ahead and says to Jarvis, hey, I want you back. I'm sorry that all of this happened. But Jarvis also tells him, like, hey, in order to pay for my mom's hospital bills, I had to give up my last 2% stock in Stark International. So he says, like, no, go ahead and try to call him and get it back. And Jarvis wasn't able to get it back. So Stark figures out, hey, maybe I could go back to the guy that he had to give up his 2% stock up. Threatens him, says, hey, give him back the stock. Only problem is the guy said, I'll give it to you. I would have gave it to you, but I gave it up to the government, and the government is Shield. So Shield ended up buying up that 2%. Stark gets back. He's into the point to where he's about to start going back on a binge. But Cabe and Jarvis is sitting there telling him, like, Tony, you're bigger than this. We can go and fight this. But he's really just kind of taken back behind all of this stuff going on. Still he's about to start drinking. Bethany says to him, Jarvis says to him, hey, we love you. We still got your back. But in the midst of this, you need to do better with the alcoholism. Fight it. Say that you can beat it. And eventually he puts the bottle down. Then he beats alcoholism. I honestly don't think that it should take this fast just to beat it up, because that's not reality. Reality is it takes longer than that. But they're trying to be optimistic and trying to defeat this, so I have to commend them a little bit on it. But Tony is determined to try to get the stocks back. But that's where it ends. So that concludes Demon in the Bottle. I thought this was a pretty good it was a pretty good story. I also looked at it as this is really a it's a story of capitalism. It's a story of drinking back then, and especially because back in that period, back in the 60s and 70s, there wasn't a lot of talk about alcoholism to where it is like today. Well, we can sit here and talk about, hey, let's try to fix these problems. Back then, it was like, oh no, dude, I don't have a problem. There's nothing wrong. I just like to drink. Drinking is making me get through all of these issues, when really it's not. You need to take the time out to try to make yourself better. You need a team. Yes, they have the 12 steps, but you need to actually admit that you have a drinking problem. It took forever and a day for Tony to admit that he has this problem. And it's okay to go ahead, and especially because I feel like there's, especially throughout this quarantine time, a lot of people are drinking. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk about this story, is because I know that there's a lot of times throughout this quarantine time that a lot of people, including myself, are drinking more than what they usually would be doing. I also wanted to let you guys know that, hey, we're going to get through this. Be stronger. If you need help by anybody, please don't just keep the stuff bottled in. Talk to people. People need help. People don't know how to ask for help. And if somebody is willing to let you in on their life about like, hey, I have a problem, I have depression or any of that nature, please seek help. I don't have the information as far as like for AA or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure that there's alcohol hotline or drug hotline trying to get you through this depressing time. Just lend a hand out. Be a Cabe. Be a Jarvis. Be that person to always stay there to help out your person if you're going through alcoholism, if you're going through depression, if you're going through drug use and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to close this down because we're almost getting on to 30 minutes with this. But I'm all joking aside. I just really feel like if you're having those type of issues, you need to talk to somebody. Please talk to somebody about this. It's a serious matter, and I just want to shed a little light on it. So I think this was a pretty dope issue. It's a 9 issues of the Marvel comic group, Demon in a Bottle, Iron Man. And I hope you guys enjoyed this Herb's comic book journey. And until then, peace.